Stop trying.
Good evening and good morning to all here on OSU Live. We are back with yet another match of the semifinals weekend. This is a big winners bracket one, folks. This is the United States of America versus Australia, our second and third seeded teams of the tournament. Two teams who are very familiar with each other in this bracket stage and do have a history in these later stage pools on here. Two very good rosters that have been fighting their way through this tournament handedly, now going up against each other this weekend to determine who will face off in the winners bracket finals and who will have to fight their way through 2 matches per weekend for the remainder of the tournament to make it through back to the grand finals and finals weekends. I am Chili Repair, joined this evening, for at least us, by iFlame. Good evening.
Oh, this is such an exciting matchup. I think this is the one most people have been anticipating. And you mentioned that history, Chillier. It's been the U.S. that's eliminated Australia in the losers bracket grand finals 2 years in a row now. So definitely a bit of a grudge match for Australia. And we saw these two teams face off last year in the semifinals winner bracket, where United States beat Australia 6-4. But it was a massive carry performance from Utami on that match. So they're going to need somebody to step up because Australia has managed to retain most of their core players, and they're looking incredibly strong so far, especially since the qualifier stage. When you look at the head-to-head maps between these two teams, round of 16 quarterfinals, Australia has every single head-to-head, so they've certainly been in form, but I think this is going to be really the first challenge for both of these two teams.
It's going to be interesting. They're both very strong on the pools moving forward. I think there have been some doubts about, I guess, both of these teams in some senses, but also a lot of strong points. I think there's a lot of new players on both teams that are giving confidence to both sides. The United States with a bit of a refreshed roster this year. Likewise with Australia, probably their strongest year yet in the World Cup, and the year that a lot of people believe is going to be their big chance to send the United States packing and maybe even take the win this year, although they will still have to get through the #1 seed Poland to make that happen. Remains to be seen. But again, strong maps for both of these two teams. Australia was the #1 team on 3 maps in the quarterfinals weekend. The United States #1 team on 2, however, and completely divisive skill sets at that. The Australia leaning in as the mechanics team this year, and that's a distinction that has usually gone to the United States, which is an interesting point to note that the skill set the United States used to beat Australia last year is now the skill set that they're probably going to want to ban into Australia. Australia sort of leaning the other way now, where we see these matches go, where they're going to want to get rid of the gimmick. That's really where the United States has leaned into this year, especially with their new roster additions in Caleb and Ethan Tricks. Those are going to be, a major addition to the roster when it comes to their breadth of their gimmick ability on top of that usual roster. So I'm excited to see how these two teams sort of come into their own in these skill sets and how things have sort of flipped into this year.
They certainly are. And one thing that makes this United States team so terrifying is that it feels like they can play just about anything at a relatively high level. You look at the qualifiers, they top scored every single one of the DT picks. You look at round of 16, they top scored Hard Rock 1, Hard Rock 2. So, okay, this team can play DTs, they can play Hard Rocks. They go into quarterfinals, and now they're top scorer in Hidden 2 as well. So pick any map in the pool. United States are going to put up an incredibly strong score on it, which means there's no guaranteed points for Australia, but they've been sharp as well. You mentioned the tapping, the mechanics. They've put up quite a few top scores on those, and they've clearly been able to match the U.S. quite well so far in this tournament. We get an Hidden 1 ban coming out from the United States. That's an interesting one. Was kind of more expecting the HD2. That's the one we typically see following the Nomad 5. And especially, it's not another of those tapping maps. They've left the DT2 and 3 open, which is a big surprise into Australia. We'll see if that comes back to bite them, but I guess not feeling comfortable on this very tricky, hidden, awkward aim pick.
It's going to be an interesting set with these first few bans here. The United States sort of leaning into the bans that we expected them to. Entangle Night is a map that Australia is, for lack of a better term, going to absolutely fry the United States on. They are such a good stream stamina team. They have been the #1 score multiple weekends in a row for this sort of skill set, and the United States needs that map out of the pool. I am wondering about the Hidden 1 ban. Australia's aim is good, but I do think that their tapping and flow aim is a little bit better. And for that reason, I was maybe expecting the Ms. Victoria ban from the United States. I am unsure the reasoning behind the swap between those two. Maybe just giving Australia that side, Ms. Victoria just being a really good song. Who knows? And Australia leaning into the way that I think we sort of predicted, that DT4, the gimmick DT, is a big, strong point for the United States, despite Australia being very good at the double time pool and that Nomad 5 being banned out here. We're really looking to get rid of the mechanics if you're Australia right now, and this is all well and good for, from our perspective. I think this is a pretty solid set of bans that don't deviate too far from where we likely expected to go. The question is the United States for their first pick, and that is going to be Skywired Beatscape.
Yeah, they're going to opt into No Mod 3. It's going to be our Rhythmic Snap Aim pick. So, banning out aim, picking a very different type of aim. But I think this is going to look good for them. They have a lot of good ult players on this team. Most certainly going to see Advantrix for this pick. And for the United States, it's really been Rectigon and Decade who have been the top performers this year. Each of them have up. The United States is so good about using pretty much everybody on their roster. You look back at qualifiers and they had 5 players in the top 25 individually, so likely we're going to be seeing everybody get their chance for this United States roster. Australia, it's kind of the MREC and Secret Box show. I don't think either of them have missed a single map all tournament long, so we're certainly going to be seeing them hop into the lobby shortly.
This is going to be the first set of rosters we see for these two teams. Map number 1, an original at that, a very good one. Mapped by one of our organizers, very own Azer, joined by MegaFan on this set. A pretty solid duo, if I do say so myself. This is a pretty exciting pick overall. You know, I was a big fan of this when this got released on the showcase. Big shout outs to the whole team that worked on this as well. Storyboard by Nafi, designed by Zeth and Low Graphics and Sakura as usual. So a very good step for the teams to get into here. A couple other originals that we're hoping to see in this pool as well, just to sort of lean into things. Peach Pit, we're hoping to see that picked here today. It's unbelievably famous, you know, with everyone that saw the showcase. I mean, everyone is really looking forward to seeing that one. I've been told that Mango Miser is actually going to resign if it doesn't get picked. So please, let's see if it happens. But jumping into the No Mod 3 to start us off, the United States looking to keep their strong lead at the start of this match here, starting off with a regular point. Australia, of course, trying to take the break point to set themselves up for success in this match. I'm expecting a back and forth between these two teams, at the very least in the early game. There is no reason for me to believe that these two teams would not be able to have some pretty guaranteed picks in the early onset here. And as we jump into it, it's Decaton, Ethantrix, Rectigon, and Window Life facing off against MREC, a Secret Box, aka NZX, and Cloppet.
Yeah, Cloppet has been a really nice addition for Australia, kind of a new addition this year, and has been in for quite a few maps for them, especially some of these no mod alt and tech picks, and has put up some incredibly strong scores. So definitely a player to keep an eye out for on this one. But between these two teams, it definitely feels like the early momentum is going to be important. You know, I could easily see this one going to a tiebreaker. I could also, if we see a couple early break points, one team could absolutely run away with this match and just take off with this score lead. But this is an incredibly short map. We do see an early miss out of MREC, but this map is a lot harder to set up. The combos do matter a fair bit because it's hard to make up those score differences into the ending. And it's so hard to hold on to your combos into the second half as well. As the dust settles out of this intro, we've got a few misses on both sides, but things are going to be staying pretty even for the time being, a slight advantage for the US.
A little bit of a slip up from a few players here at the start of the map. Window Life now going to be added on to that tally in a more substantial format there. MREC and Cloppet going to be the two to find the breaks on Australia. Ethantrix with a very, very early miss. Rectigon, the only FC remaining on the United States. Decaton, sadly enough, with another break at that 98% accuracy. Same with Window Life. The two players who actually appear to be the most confident on the United States are the two to have found breaks on the map. Likewise with MREC, highest accuracy on Australia with the 97%. Fortunately for the United States on their pick, a Secret Box and AKNZX were not too far behind their teammates on the breaks. And it's now MREC with the 470 combo, going to trade out a miss with Rectigon, the #1 combo gone. And now it's Ethantrix, the gimmick newcomer for the United States. Not necessarily a newcomer anymore in the semifinal stage. Does get slow slidered, however. Not before putting up the #1 combo in the lobby with just a small bit of map to go, and that's going to give the United States the point there on the back of Window Life and Decaton, bring it up to finish.
Certainly is. Yeah, Australia just don't have the combo to bring this one back. And it's a strong start from the US, securing their first point. Tends to be the most important one in Australia. going to fire back with a pick of their own. Feels like they have a few good options because the United States have 3 capping maps available. HD2, as much as I would love to see it, is certainly not going to be an Australia pick. I would be shocked. So in my mind, we're looking at the DT2, DT3, and the map that you mentioned earlier, Chillier, that no mod stream pick.
It looks like Window Life actually does miss the 99% at the end of the map, unfortunately. 98.84, though, and 98.53 from Decatur. Exceptional accuracy there. Ethan Tricks with quite literally just the slider tick missed on that right-hand side long slider. An unfortunate break to lose the full combo. But a good overall performance from the United States. Honestly, you know, it looked like Ethan Tricks had that for a longer than his team, and he did, but really 700 combos across the board for the United States. Pretty strong from the entire roster on Gimmick, and that's sort of their gambit in the semifinals weekend here, is being able to have that breadth of Gimmick players in order to carry them through these picks and not have to rely on the solo carry that they maybe relied on a little bit last year. Of course, we can't attribute it to one singular player from 2024, but there was definitely a little bit more of that than they're going to be able to put on in this match today. Likewise with Australia, they've got a couple of star players, but we are in the semifinals weekend, and both of these rosters do run deep, and you're not going to be able to run the solo carry just yet. But it does help, and we're hoping that Australia is going to be able to pull up some heroics from a couple players who we have seen in the previous weekends. And it is going to be DT1, pretty par for the course for Australia to bring them up at the start.
Yeah, Australia has picked this map every single week they've had the chance to. Going to be a really good one for them. And I will say, Chiller, I do feel like we are getting to that stage where the solo players are starting to make much more of a difference. And I mean, in this matchup specifically, you're certainly not going to see too many hard solo carries. But the map's definitely been hard enough that one player can absolutely put up a carry. And I think MREX so far has been the best performer these two teams, but Rectigon certainly hasn't been far behind. Had the #1 individual performance in round of 16, so keeping up at the very least. But this DT1, it's going to be your DT aim map. This one, not quite your standard DT aim map. It's got some 230 for bursts, a little bit of finger control as well, and about 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So there's a bit of a consistency test, but not nearly as much as your normal DT1.
This is definitely going to be a consistency test in the sense that this map is long. 5 minutes and 46 seconds before double time. That is not after double time. So a little bit shorter on that side. But with drain time like that, 5 minutes total drain time on this map means that they are in this for the long haul. And at a pretty high BPM as well, means that this is definitely going to favor those speedier players in the lobby, not necessarily just those that are comfortable with the consistency on the double time. A little bit of farming going on this map too. I do have to say, almost 800 PP for a full combo on this one. A couple players in this lobby pretty good on this map as well. Rectigon, one of the known full combos on this map out of the players that we do see in this lobby. Unfortunately, none of the Australian players popping up in that top 50. Perhaps on the DT only leaderboard, we'd see a couple extra players starting to show up here. So someone to look out for maybe is that Rectigon down in the bottom right there for the United States. And of course on Australia, this entire DT roster is just a stellar lineup. MREX, Secret Box, AK, NZX, and Clopit here going to be the star roster for them to try and send the United States packing on DT. And I'd say if Australia is able to win this one, they are likely going to be able to take the remaining 2 DT picks pretty handedly. That's going to be 3 guaranteed points for Australia. That is going to get them basically halfway to that win, if not more than halfway if you're counting the match point.
Yeah, and guaranteed picks in a match like this are so hard to come by that if they can win this one decisively, that is going to feel so good for them going forward. and it's going to let them have a bit of breathing room, at least for their next 2 picks until things start to get difficult again. I also want to shout out Emmerich, had the top score on DT1 last week. We'll see if they can put up a similar performance here. I think this map is relatively comfortable in terms of the patterning, especially early on, so you kind of expect to see some higher combos on both sides. At Clopit, so far the only early miss, but the map is long enough that it shouldn't make too much of a difference as long as we do see that recovery.
Yeah, early onset of this map, and again, we sort of talk about the length of this, where these misses aren't really going to be detrimental early on unless you're seeing players miss with extremely low accuracy, because that's really where Score V2 starts to take a big hit. The United States really just on that combo lead from the accuracy as well. They've got 80k in their favor, and it's because Window Life, the only player who has missed, is at 99.2% accuracy, unlike the Australian equivalent Clopit, who is down at 98%. And with AKNZX unfortunately finding a break right before the pause, the United States now gets to see that they've got the 2 combos to 3 now, and a pretty sizable lead that is going to increase unless we see a combo break on Taquito, Pez, or Rectagon here.
As a point that Australia cannot afford to drop, but there's still plenty of time left in this match. Australia are now patiently waiting, holding on to these 2 key full combos, and they're just waiting for one opportunity right down. We've got a trickier section coming up after these these mirror control patterns, and so we could potentially see some misses, but even Window Life on the recovery, and the score lead continues to grow for the United States, up by 200,000 points now. It's a nice buffer, but they're not out of the woods just yet. There is a pretty tricky linear stream coming up that we could see some misses on. There goes AKNZX. That's not the drop you needed from Australia. They need every single combo to hold at this point, and the United States looking absolutely flawless right now.
This is not too bad of a scenario for them, considering AKNZX is a duplicate miss. The problem, however, is that the United States with these 3 combos means that Australia is going to need to see breaks on probably 3 of the 4 players on the United States to bring this back. Clopit bringing up a supporting combo that Window Life is effectively matching right now. Box and Pez do trade out a combo, and they do get the bonus of finding Rectagon, so that is a big advantage for Australia now with Emmerich and Clopit at the big combos. AKNZX, however, is only providing just a very small amount of score gain for Australia into this final quarter. And unless we see Taquito drop with the #1 accuracy in the entire lobby, and Clopit drops the big combo for Australia, Emmerich is unfortunately likely not able to do this by himself. It's only about 100k left in the map. Window Life does find a break, but Taquito 99.4% on the DT1, and with only a couple seconds left to go, this 500k will stand strong for the United States. And Australia, unfortunately, not going to have the consistency necessary to pull this one out. And oh boy, I am just going to continue spotlighting this Taquito accuracy, because this is stellar.
This is a phenomenal score from Taquito. And not only is this a break point, but this is a break point on Australia's first pick, and a decisive one at that. And it's just about the worst feeling, losing your own first pick like that. So Australia is going to need to take a breather, reset. But it's the United States who have the next pick. They can really try and push this momentum and take advantage of the early break point here. They need to consolidate, but I do think they still have a lot of good picks left in the pool. We might finally see that Hidden 2, which for only the second time this weekend has been left unbanned. I think would be a really good pick for the United States. They had the best score on the Hidden 2 last week, and they've been generally strong on it throughout the entirety of this tournament.
This was a big one for the United States. The Australia has looked pretty favored on mechanics level picks, although I guess the one concession you can maybe give to Australia for losing this map is that I do think on paper Australia is more favored on the tapping and stamina picks rather than the aim favored DT picks. So I may have been looking to see something like Dreadnought or Miss Victoria from Australia to open up this match rather than the DT1. That's really the only concession I will give as to why they potentially let this pick slip away in the fashion that they did. They still looked really good, though. I mean, that was a 3.2, mid 3.3 million team score. That is absolutely stellar. The problem is the United States is just very good at aim, And you need to be able to match up with that consistency that some of these players have. And luckily for the United States as well, you've got Taquito, who looks to be feeling pretty good today, which is not something we've seen every single weekend in the tournament so far, but definitely pulling it together in the later stages. The United States generally sort of trends to that line as well. They look maybe a little bit shaky earlier stage, and then they start to pull it together around the semifinals weekend. And it looks like no matter the roster switches, the United States is sort of going to maintain that. And there's HD2. It's Peach Pit and Cyanide.
It is happening. It is about time, Chile. We've been waiting all weekend for this map, and we finally get it. It is our AR8 reading Osu Original by Millie. This one is an absolute banger, and I think a fan favorite this time around. But yeah, it's definitely the last kind of DT pick I would have expected from Australia, so we'll see what they opt into going forward. But United States, they've got quite the reading roster this year between their two new additions, Caleb and Nathantrix. They're kind of the star reading players for this team. Then you've got Bosch as well, and I'm curious if we do see Rectigon in this one, because Rectigon has been working incredibly hard over the last 2 years to really improve his reading ability, and actually put up the, I think, top hidden 2 score in the round of 16 for the United States. So has certainly improved, and very well could be in for this map.
Pretty excited to see the rosters for this map. This is the first time we've seen this up here, and I am more than looking forward to the experience of listening to this played out and seeing how these players do on the stream. Please do not expect much commentary from me during this map. I will forewarn everyone in chat. I'm going to be sitting here jamming to this song, watching the... I'm going to say this in the way that is not biased because I am American, but needs to be, the United States putting on an absolute gimmick clinic on this map. I am expecting... this is their bread and butter. This is the entire basis with which they have created their roster this year. And while Australia is going to be a competitive team on this, I am just so expecting the United States to have an exceptional time on this map. And the speed with which they threw their roster in just further pushes the fact that the United States knows exactly what they are capable of on this map and how well this is going to go. The Australia will have their time, but right now it's Peach Pit and Cyanide, and that is the United States' playground.
Yeah, this map definitely feels incredibly US favored, so it's very possible we end up enjoying the music for this one. Interesting, we do see Saver in for Australia, who hasn't really played any of the hiddens for them so far this tournament. I'm not sure if AKNZX, who usually plays the hiddens for them, feels that comfortable on this one, but here we go. It's time to observe this US performance. I think it's not impossible, but it's going to take a miraculous performance from Australia to pull out a breakpoint here.
Beautiful, nice, slow intro to this song, getting us eased into things. The Ki, low key as well. We're really looking for these early overlaps, these quick swaps, these tight and wide angles at the start of the map here. No early breaks, no signs of inconsistency. The only thing we will give in favor of the United States is their accuracy, and that is to be expected from the stronger reading team. The 94%, 95% on Australia going to be a little bit concerning for their overall performance on this map. Again, looking towards maybe Emrek and Paler right now for those 98s.
Into the first section of the map, Taquito, going to be the first to fall. There is plenty of time to rebuild here, but it's going to be another couple misses. Save does trade that one back. That's going to make things 3 FCs to 3. It's United States with the accuracy advantage, though. Incredibly strong accuracy on Boshiman and Caleb as well. That's 2 misses from Australia. That is going to hurt them big time. And so far, it's continued misses from Taquito on the side of the United States, but elsewhere, they are looking phenomenal here. Halfway through the map, and they're still holding 3 FCs. There goes Emrek, last FC down for Australia. And this is kind of what we expected on this map.
No concerns from the United States on their ability to play this map. The question in everyone's mind was, is Australia going to be able to keep up? And unfortunately, The United States looking just far too strong right now. You do see Caleb finding a break on that bottom left. Still 98% accuracy, though, which is higher than every player on Australia. But it's Ethantrix and Boshi, man. The two you expected to pull up big here. 95% accuracy for Ethantrix. I wouldn't exactly call that stellar, but Boshi, man, really the player to look out for right now. This is his time to shine. There's always a couple good Boshi, man, maps in the pool in OWC, and well, this is certainly going to be one of them. A third of the map left to go. Big jump section into this next key eye. Australia can do nothing about this.
No, they cannot. I think they're already going to be looking forward to the next map, thinking about their next pick, as now the question is, do we see two full combos on this pick from Boshi and Ethantrix? I mean, there are a couple tricky patterns, but nothing more difficult than what we've seen so far, so it's entirely possible we get a couple full combos here.
Well, Boshi, man, hitting one of the harder jump sections there. We're coming into the ending of the map. It's Ethantrix below 95% on the map, just barely making it through these patterns with that ACK. Emrek with a recovery in the ending to pull up that 97. Unfortunately, not going to be able to hold it into the finish. Big jumps into the ending here, and Boshi, man, hits the final pattern with Ethantrix 98.15%. And the only time we see this map picked this weekend thus far, we get a double FC from the United States. Boshi, man, with accuracy over the moon. Ethantrix, unfortunately, drowning underwater in the accuracy, but a perfect combo at that. Not a single slider and dropped.
That is so impressive, and I've got a pretty good feeling. Well, obviously right now, that's the top score of the tournament because these are the only two teams who have played the map. But I have a pretty good feeling it's going to I don't think we realistically see anybody beating that score. And Australia now going with the expected pick. We're finally getting that DT2, and it is your finger control down in map 252 BPM, so still rather speedy, but a lot of finger control. There are some tricky wiggles. We don't really have to aim them, so that's not too much of a concern. And this is definitely a must-win for Australia, right? Tapping is supposed to be your big favorite map, and so if you're losing tapping, then all of a sudden you're just quickly running out of picks.
Yeah, this is, you know, there's a lot of opportunity for comeback in a semifinals match, especially when there are 6 points on the board in order to win, because you are pushing that best of 11 and you are increasing the amount of maps that you are sort of getting through here. And the United States being at 3 points now, unfortunately, starts to whittle that time down for Australia. As you approach the halfway point overall for points, means that, well, yes, the United States, of course, is 3 points away from winning the match, but even more importantly, that's only 2 more maps in order to force tiebreaker out between the two teams here. Meanwhile, Australia, in order to get the equivalent points, assuming Australia and the United States continue trading maps back and forth, which is the way matches should be going in a perfect world, means Australia wins their map here, the United States wins one more, Australia wins theirs, and then the United States sort of takes that next one, forces match point. Then that's Australia now 2-5 under normal circumstances, which now gives the United States 3 points in a row to try and win the match before Australia even reaches the point of tiebreaker. And that's sort of why this halfway point in these best of 11 matches becomes very difficult. Looking into the DT2 as a potential option for these two teams, however, I like Australia's odds on this map. We are getting more into the speed range of things, which of course, is going to favor a different set of the Australian roster. As we can see here, United States speed roster is going to remain about the same for this. And as we get into it, hoping to see some bigger strengths from Australia on the speed here as they look for something a little bit more comfortable and in their wheelhouse from that aim map.
Yeah, this is actually the first time we have seen Superior play in this tournament, so I'm going to have to keep an eye on that score, but the United States have put up some strong speed scores as well. It certainly isn't a guarantee for Australia, as we saw with their best pick on the DT1, but should be slightly more Australia favored. And this is an incredibly short map, so we're going to have to keep an eye on these early misses, but so far, it is a 4-way for both teams.
Nice and strong, a little bit more comfortable. Superior going to mess up on the finger control, however, and that's the concern for a map like this is not necessarily the speed for Australia, but the finger control aspect of this. Window Life, however, going to find the first pick for the United States. A little bit uncharacteristic from Window Life to break on a map like this. Definitely one of their stronger skill sets overall, but it's going to even this match back out for Australia. And a double break from those same two players, but it's AK and ZX to find the break as well for Australia. And now it's 2 FCs to 3. The United States with the advantage, 200,000. And this map does not have a whole lot of time left. Pez finds a break into the ending. Emrek, unfortunately, however, has traded the miss out earlier. It's a double break from the United States, though, and Kloppet's got the combo into the ending. It's 200,000 score, and there's just a little bit of map left to go. Can Kloppet pull up the heroics for Australia? It's Superior to find a break into the ending, but no, it's a miss!
Australia so close, Chillier, to bringing this one back, but not quite able to do it. Now the United States, they're up by 4. They've got 2 break points in a row. And they are running away with this match. Australia, historically, have never before beaten the USA, and today might not be their day.
It is an unfortunate scenario, and I think everyone was expecting an unbelievable match between these two teams in the semifinals weekend, especially after what we saw last year, and especially with how strong Australia looked this year and how highly projected they were. But the United States, a team that ended up getting second place in the OS World Cup last year for the first time ever since their reign began. Now, once again, a front-running team in these later stages. 4-0 on a team who was favored to potentially even win it all this year, in a year with some new players going through, and now just 2 maps away from advancing to the finals weekend in the winners bracket, 1 away from match point and awaiting them on the other half of the bracket. Poland or Canada, the first seed or the 4th seed, unless Australia is able to make a serious turnaround here and now.
Yeah, and it's not the end of the road for Australia, of course. They lost to the US in the same round last year, and these two teams met again in the losers bracket grand finals, where Australia lost in the tiebreaker. So even if they do drop this match, Australia will be down but not out, as we're going to get Fremont replay from the United States. This is an interesting one. This is going to be your density kind of flow aim control pick. And what we've seen from the United States on these Fremont is that they love to overmod these hard rocks. I think every Fremont they've played so far, they've run an extra hard rock or 2, but I think this map is difficult enough that you don't really need to risk an extra hard rock, so I'm kind of expecting just 1 hidden, 1 hard rock from both sides.
Yeah, no overmodding I am expecting on this map. Pretty uncomfortable, pretty dense, even on hard rock. You know, this map doesn't get too much easier, and that CS 2.5 is chiefly responsible for that. There's only so much that can do, and it's already at AR 9.4, so pretty comfortable for most players in here. It's really not going to affect that much, so you're looking at the ability to play the rhythms, the ability to read through these patterns, and that brings back to the United States. We've got Decaton back in the lobby as well. Looked a little bit uncertain on some of the earlier picks, but I mean, if there was ever a player to pick in the wheelhouse on this sort of map, it is going to be Decaton. The question is, who is Caleb potentially subbing in or out for in that slot for Australia? We could see one of these 4 out, otherwise maybe just holding the side. Australia, just Paler in right now, expecting to see Emrek back in for their side, and then on the other side, Kloppet going to come back in. It looks like Box going to be that 4th player for them. And this is the point of no return for Australia, iFlame. This is a win for the United States that leads to a guaranteed tiebreaker, and then that forces Australia into the point of no return. 0 points can be lost beyond there. And if Australia can steal it away here, well, that's just 1 point towards their very long road of matching up of a 4-0. This could be the start of something big, but it unironically really needs to start now. There is no time but the present for Australia, literally.
picks very quickly running out. I don't think, obviously, this is not where Australia wanted or expected to be at this point in the match. And so have to wonder about the mental as well. It's one thing to lose a couple unlucky picks, but when you're getting beaten pretty handedly on your own picks, it can be tough to stay in the match mentally. But we said we weren't sure about overmods on this one. We've got a ton. It's going to be 2 Hard Rocks for the United States, Decade and Rectagon taking those. Over on Australia, all 4 players with mods. We've got a hidden Hard Rock on MREC, Hard Rocks on Secret Box and Clop It, and the hidden on Paler. So I'm a little skeptical, but we'll see if this overmod pays off.
Well, I sort of made the bold claim that Hard Rock didn't make too much of a difference on this map because it was CS 2.5, and that's already pretty small, or pretty large, small of a number. But apparently it does, with a significant number of players on Australia taking Hard Rock, and we know them to not quite be the gimmick team that the United States is. That is sort of par for the course for a team that doesn't want that. If you remove the density requirement, then the patterns get a lot easier to read at the very least. Maybe not easier to play with the Hard Rock and the spacing increase. And it's working out for them. It's Decade and Clop It to find a traded breakout here. A couple other misses on the side of Australia that were really small, really early. Likewise with Pez down at 500 combo here. So we're sitting pretty even between the two teams. It's really just a slight accuracy advantage for Australia and also the positioning of the misses. Clop It finding just that fewer break than Decade did with the early one. Paler, however, going to have the combo dropped in this section there, and that is going to be a bigger advantage for the United States as they're now going to be able to pull a little bit of score back.
Once again, it's the United States with the massive combo advantage here. They're nearly a full FC up. Decade should start to recover as well, and it's really just those 2 core for Australia, Secret Box and MREC, keeping things close right now. Pez is going to help out Australia a little bit with a miss. Now it's a 2 versus 2, and Australia has managed to keep things incredibly close. So this one very well within reach. I think it's all going to come down to this tech section that's coming up in about 10 seconds time.
It's making pretty comfortable for Australia. Like you said, 20k, this is going to go back pretty quickly, and it's mainly due to the accuracies of Australia being so high right now. On a lot of the gimmick maps, it's really been a big United States advantage because their accuracy was so much higher. But when it comes down to it, and Australia is able to sort of match that, it does become infinitely closer. Unfortunately for Australia, they do find a double trade where the United States only finds a break on Pez, which means that Decade is now supporting combo on top of Rectagon and Ethan Trix, and whatever he does is a bonus after there's earlier misses. Pez continuing to have a little bit of trouble. Luckily for the United States, Australia finding a break there, but that's bad enough. They need to see a miss from one of these FCs, and it could not be MREC, unfortunately, and that is going to send the score skyrocketing in favor of the United States. Paler one more to finish it off, and it's Secret Box with an unbelievable performance right now to match up to Rectagon and Ethan Trix, but it's a double FC, and there is nothing you can do about that. When will it end for the United States? Do we surely not see another double FC from them?
And it is Ethantrix and Rectagon right now, absolutely ripping through this Australian roster. And I mean, for Australia, this is an absolute nightmare scenario. There's nothing you can do but watch as the United States charges towards their 5th straight point, leaving Australia with a big egg right now. And could we see 2 FCs on this map? That would be an absurd score from the US.
This is just unbelievable. I mean, Hidden 2 was impressive enough. Rectagon, unfortunately, going to find a slider break, I believe, with the Hard Rock at the very ending of the map, but who better to do it than Ethan Trix on the Hidden? And the accuracy wasn't too great on Hidden 2, but man, is it ever now. 98.81% accuracy into these final patterns here. Surely there's no miss on these snaps if he didn't miss earlier. And there it is. Ethan Trix, 1 million plus score, 98.8% accuracy. Looks like it may have even been an early slider break with that 50 on there, but that's close enough to an FC. Rectagon, likewise, 1 slider break, 1931 combo, 98% accuracy on the Hard Rock. And Australia with a valiant effort to try and keep up. MREC and Secret Box, Hidden Hard Rock and Hard Rock, 700k plus for both of those 2 players. Unfortunately, not matching up to the support of the United States or a near double FC. And well, it is the final pick potentially for Australia. 5 points in a row for the United States, and just one more opportunity to make the comeback start now. And the United States, people counted them out this year. They thought it would be a rebuilding year. They thought people would be testing things out in the Americas this time around. Well, no, sir. The United States bringing it back 5-0, and Australia left to pick up the scraps of this match, unfortunately. Down to the losers bracket in one more point. They're going to have to fight through to make it back to the grand finals weekend where they made it to last year.
Yeah, if there's one thing I've learned in my years watching, commentating OSU World Cups, is that you never doubt the United States. They are so strong. They are absolutely locked in right now. They are leaving nothing on the table for Australia, who, don't get me wrong, are putting up some team scores, but against the United States, good team scores just don't cut it. You need to be putting up best in the tournament scores if you want to compete. And the big question is, obviously, where do you go from here? Didn't win DT1, didn't win DT2. I think that Nomad 2, Miss Victoria, should still be a good pick for them. I think earlier I would have said DT3. At this point, I don't think that's such a good idea anymore.
It's definitely a questionable scenario now. Looks like it's going to be a timeout for Australia. Really going to try and figure out this last pick, and I respect the dedication to being careful with how this goes here. There are really two options in my mind for Australia right now. The DT hasn't gone too well for them thus far, but it just has to be Miss Victoria or Dreadnought in my mind. Miss Victoria, not quite the same as other stream maps that we've seen earlier in the tournament that Australia was really good at, like the medal picks that we've had in here. But it is a stream map. It is stamina focused, but it does have a lot of those space streams, and that could potentially favor a couple of really good players on Australia. But with the consistency of the United States today, that's becoming more and more of a question in my mind, maybe compared to something like Dreadnought. And the question is, on the other half of things, does Australia have it in them to go for a hard rock against the United States? And I don't know if they do on this particular hard rock pool. Kaganui is a very flow aim focused, almost mech tech map that we've got in the Hard Rock 3. Hard Rock 2, very awkward linear aim Hard Rock 2 at the precision slot, which is something that generally favors the United States, especially when you've got players like Bashiman on your roster who main precision and this CS means nothing to him. And then you've got Fake Fake Fake, which is just a high intensity aim map. And as we've seen from this match thus far, the aim maps don't necessarily favor Australia over the United States if we're basing off of that DT1 and all of the other aim we've seen, especially in Hidden 2. Even though it was lower AR, it was a very aim-focused pick. So it's got to be something like the DT3 in my mind.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I actually think for Australia, if you really want to switch things up, they could potentially look at the Hidden 3, as strange as it might seem. Never mind, they're going to go for free Mod 1. Ooh. So throw everything we just said out the window, as we're going to be getting these awkward aim mixed with some aim control free mod. And this is one where I generally don't expect to see quite as many over mods as last time, but for a team like the United States, we certainly could see a couple. This one has a lot of cuts, tons of space patterns, and I don't mind this picture just for the sake of doing something different.
I like that they did something different, and you know, that's fine. Would I have picked the Lasse consistency aim map as the something different? Maybe not. But, you know, would I have liked to see Miss Victoria? Yeah. Now, I'm biased, but yeah. And I think it would have favored Australia, and it would have been something different because, again, Australia's been good at the medal stream maps, which are not the same as Miss Victoria, which is more aim-focused. It's got more space streams. It's a little bit more uncomfortable. And, again, no bit of me pushing Nomad 2 is Uma at all, obviously. I would never. But, you know, Nukatashi, not too bad, too. We're not going to delve into Nukatashi at all, but still, I respect it. Australia is based.
They certainly are. Unfortunately for the other Miss Victoria, they have to come and play another day. I think for Australia, the idea behind this one might be you pick a map that Fox and Emmerich are feeling really good on, and just let them do their thing. Hope they can put up two incredibly strong scores, and then hope the United States doesn't manage to match those two scores. Now, based on what we've seen so far, that's a pretty big ask from the United States, who have been holding 2 full combos regularly, with a third very high combo not too far behind. But you got to start somewhere. And for Australia, it seems like they've decided they're going to start with free mod 1, and then after that, they're going to get 4 more points on the board and find themselves in the tiebreaker. I mean, how hard could it be?
How hard could it be? Well, so far in this tournament, it has only been as difficult as a 5-2 against France, who have been the only team thus far to take points on the United States. In the round of 16, the United Kingdom unfortunately met the fate of a 6-0 in the quarterfinals, and Australia, like our 7th seeded team, is on a similar track now. Unless this AIM map is what they were looking for. Again, very different from the DT1. You know, AIM is not just AIM when you basically cut the BPM in a third of what it was on the DT1. And the consistency is really where this is going to come through. Australia finding 2 very early breaks. MREC actually going to be finding a miss in the early onset of this map, which is not something I expected to see for, well, the entire pick. Xaver going to be finding a very early miss as well. Not going to matter quite as much as Rectigons on that Hard Rock a little bit later. But let's be honest, we're not expecting to see all Hard Rock FCs on this map. It is by far the hardest mod on this.
Yeah, part of the reason why I'm surprised is you see the Hard Rock on the United States, but they've been an adult tournament, play nothing, they can kind of do whatever they want. They've got some room to work with, but they've already found some early misses. It's going to be 2 big combos on either side, but with Rectigon on the recovery, those combos are going to favor United States pretty heavily, as well as the mod advantage is going to give them a pretty nice lead. AKNZX, kind of as expected, having a bit of a tougher time on this Hard Rock, and you're really relying on your no-mod players, but Strax found a miss on the no-mod, and I think that's one of those combos you can't afford to drop this early, especially when you have window life on the other side, still holding that FC.
Yeah, it's dangerous on that no-mod, of course, but you've also got Rectigon, who, as many know, is probably the best Hard Rock tournament player in the world right now, aside from MREC, who is on the no-mod for consistency right now. Unfortunately, found a couple of early breaks in this map, and it's a secret box to hold them up with the full combo. AKNZX going to find yet another break on that Hard Rock. Unfortunately, difficult mod combination to Kaiten, making this map look surprisingly easy halfway through on these space streams. Double FC for the United States. Rectigon barely behind Taquito, just a little bit further back on the hidden, but with the best accuracy in the entire lobby, and it's not looking good for the United States right now. Rectigon to find a break, but Xaver having that low combo, AKNZX recovering very slowly, and Secret Box being matched by Kaiten or Window Life right now leaves MREC with an unchecked combo against Taquito and everyone else to do whatever the heck they want. And it's really just all about how these players finish the map. Kaiten does miss pretty heavily on Chain Miss on that stream section, but it's only a little bit of combo lost, and it's Window Life on that consistency.
It's 1 miss from Kaiten, but Taquito is still holding strong, and these misses are just not coming soon enough for Australia. They've made it through the hardest section of the map, that guitar section, and now it is a matter of time before the United States will send Australia packing to the losers bracket. I think a lot of people are not surprised that the United States are winning this one, but I don't think anybody expected it to happen in such a dominant fashion, as they've kind of put any questions about this roster to rest. 6-0 still, only dropping points to France.
Ooh, and an unfortunate miss right at the ending of the map from Secret Box. I was about to give a big congratulations for putting up the hidden full combo, but pretty damn close for Box there. 1 million plus 99% accuracy, 2 misses at the ending. An unfortunate miss, but a great performance from him to hold up Australia. But Window Life, perfect combo, 99.29%. And to Kaiten, whatever the hell we just witnessed with Hard Rock on this map, with that Space Stream section being the only place to find the break. And the United States, the Australians looked really, really good on a lot of these picks, but there is just nothing you can do against the United States, who is playing at their peak level. A 6-0 victory that I don't think a single person here was expecting this evening from the Americans, and they will advance to the winners bracket finals. They are going to be sitting, waiting for the winner of Poland versus Canada. And man, am I excited for whoever that match leads into, because we could be getting a pretty early 1-2 seed matchup, or we could see a pretty big upset, see Canada send Poland packing, and then see a North America matchup in the winners finals, which has never happened before. So it should be an interesting year without a doubt.
It certainly should. On the other hand, Australia, they got their chance. They've been here before. They lost to the United States last year. They fought their way back, still made top 3. They're going to be facing off against the winners of Germany, New Zealand. That matchup is going to be later today. So let's take a look at some of our remaining matches, at least early on in tomorrow. We're going to start off with that New Zealand versus Germany match at 11 UTC, followed by South Korea versus the UK at 13:30, alongside or Korea versus Russia. I believe Russia won, so that's going to be Korea versus Russia at 13:30. And then we've got some matches at 14, 15, 17, and 18 UTC. So stay tuned for those. I also want to remind you all to go show some support for your favorite teams by getting a banner in the OSU shop. If you're a fan of one of these two teams, the United States and Australia, there's a very realistic chance that one of these two teams may win OWC and you get to keep it banner for the rest of the year.
Very exciting weekend ahead of us. There's one more day left of the semifinals, and there are big matches included in there with some potential upsets we're looking for. In that 6 hours from now is really the one that I'm looking at. New Zealand with the God Run this year. Will they send Germany packing in the semifinals weekend? South Korea, our reigning champions, facing off against Russia in what could potentially be one of Russia's furthest finishes or performances that we've seen in quite some time. And then, of course, Poland versus Canada. No matter who wins that matchup, that is going to be a new finals matchup that we have not seen before, given the last time we saw Poland versus the United States in a grand finals of the OS World Cup. We all know how that match went, so should be exciting for next weekend for all these teams, and I am looking forward to every single one of them.
It certainly should. I cannot wait. So we will see you all back here tomorrow. That is going to do it for us. Another congratulations to the United States on their dominant performance. I've been iFlame, joined by the wonderful Chillier pair. And last but not least, thank you guys all so much for watching. Be right back here, 11 UTC later today for the next World Cup matchup.